You know, you'd think I'm a sucker for controversy or for causing myself issues on the internet, but I could swear to you I'm not. And I say that because in this video I'm going to be trying to rank all of the live action Supermen. And I want to do this because if you don't know, recently I did a video ranking the live action Batman, and I feel like it's only fair to, rank Superman. Now there will be some kind of like rules or like kind of guidelines I'm gonna follow to this, kind of like in the Batman video. So if you aren't aware, I'm gonna be ranking only the Supermen that I have seen and the ones that I have enough experience with that I feel like I can give, somewhat of a decent opinion on it. And also, I'm going to be ranking the mainstream live action Superman because, like Batman, there's a lot of actors who have gotten to portray this role, and no disrespect to them, but yeah, like I said, this is just going to be the actors that I have enough experience with because, frankly, guys, on top of a full-time job, I don't have the time to go out and find or rent and watch all, 20 individual, Superman movies. So with that being said, we'll get right into it. We're going to be starting from worst to best, from least favorite to my favorite. And starting out at number 7, because there are 7 actors I've picked for this list. Number 7 is going to be Nicolas Cage's Superman. This one is kind of unique, and I feel like it's pretty much self-explanatory on why it's here. If you don't know, Nicolas Cage was supposed to be Superman in a kind of a scrapped Tim Burton Superman movie titled Superman Lives, and Cage was supposed to portray Clark Kent / Superman. Honestly, the movie sounds really interesting, and I've been debating making videos on, superhero movies or sequels that have never happened because I've always been so interested in that, and this movie is definitely one of those. Nicolas Cage has a lot of passion for the character of Superman. If you don't know, he named his son Kal-El, or Cal, I think, and he has a Superman tattoo. He's loved Superman for, as long as I've known him as an actor. So I think it's awesome that he got his chance to finally portray the Man of Steel in the new Flash movie. I have my own opinions on that movie. I'm going to spoil it a little bit in case I do ever make a video, but I didn't really like it. And his cameo, as much as I really tried hard to like it, it was just not it. And maybe it's the CGI, maybe it's the fact that he doesn't talk, but, considering we get literally 0 lines out of him as Superman, I'm going to have to put him here. Like I said, it kind of sucks because I know how much Cage loves the character, and I love Nicolas Cage as an actor, although he can be quite unhinged at times. I think this is a more than fair spot. Honestly, even putting him on the list is pretty crazy because I was debating not doing it, but I just think out of respect, I should put him on the list at least. Next up, at number 6, oh man, this is probably going to piss a lot of you off, but it's going to be Tom Welling, and I'm going to preface this by saying this was not my Superman growing up. My Superman growing up will be a little bit higher on this list. Well, I don't know. I didn't really have a Superman. I feel like I have an amalgamation of a few. But Tom Welling just never really hit for me, and unlike my Batman video, I'm not possibly going to be doing a separate video ranking Clark Kent's. So this is like, their Superman as a whole. Superman, Clark Kent, them as a person. And if you don't know, Tom Welling's Superman comes from the show Smallville. And in that show, it's kind of infamous, and I mentioned it in another video I did, where it's kind of like Gotham, the TV show about Batman before he was Batman. This is kind of a prequel to Superman. And he doesn't really, suit up as Superman until the last shot of the show. Now, that's not something I'm holding against him. But with that being said, I've always found this show kind of tricky because it's not even a debatable thing that it is an iconic take on the character. He is a great Superman, and that's what sucks. In my opinion, really, there hasn't been that many, bad Supermen. I think this is a role that's kind of like Spider-Man, where it's like, take your pick, you pretty much can't go wrong no matter which way you go, other than maybe Cage. But like I said, he's barely Superman. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of a role that's like, infamous for having great actors and great iterations of the character. So Tom Welling going here is nothing personal. It's just, I watched the show. I didn't really watch it as it was coming out. I watched it on Netflix. I think there's a lot of good things in this show, although it is a product of its time and it's very CW-esque. That being said, that's not really, like, again, something I'm holding against it. It's just, upon watching it, I just didn't really click to the character, I guess, as much as I do the other versions of Superman. And to me, it's harder to see this as a Superman, and more so as like a Clark Kent with powers. It's a weird in between where he doesn't really feel like he's fully Superman yet. So it kind of sucks to put him here, because I do love Tom Welling and I like his Clark Kent a lot, and I really want to like his Superman more, but for now, this is just where he's going to go for me. Now, this could change over time. I don't know. Next up, we have Brandon Routh's version, and this one has gone way up for me. Well, way up. I say way up, but there's only been 2 other spots below it, but this has gone up on my list because of his involvement in the CW crossover. So, Brandon Routh is an interesting person, I guess, because he got his shot at Superman and in Superman Returns, and that movie was meant to be a continuation of the Christopher Reeve Superman. Same world, same Lois. He is basically, just think of it as, he is Christopher Reeve. Obviously, since Christopher Reeve was passed away, they couldn't use him. So just think of him as a vehicle for Christopher Reeve Superman. Instead of, if you want to, you could picture Christopher Reeve instead of him in all the things he does. And because of that, honestly, it gave him a really harder time than most Supermen have had, because he had to live up to the Superman. I mean, most people, especially at this time, Christopher Reeve was the Superman. He was the upper echelon. He was the thing to be. And it's kind of like, somebody replacing Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger or something. That's going to be a hard and a tall order. So, it's one of those things that's very unfortunate, because he walked into kind of a bad situation, or a tough situation. And his Superman Returns movie actually was not bad. I didn't mind it. And this is kind of what I was hinting at when I said my Supermen have been kind of an amalgamation. He is one of the Supermen of my childhood. And I loved Superman Returns when it came out. I like his version a lot. It's just unfortunate because he has so many better versions ahead of him. And not to mention, he didn't really get too much time in the spotlight, because all he got was Superman Returns and a appearance in the CW crossover. I believe it was Crisis on Infinite Earths, or one of the CW crossovers. I'll put the picture of the episode or the crossover event here. But basically, he shows up as a more grizzled Superman. He's an aged Superman, still Christopher Reeve version, still his version from Superman Returns, but a lot has happened to him. He's lost everything. He's lost Lois. He's lost his kids or kid. I can't remember if he had multiple, and he's just kind of really at a different place. And I thought it was really cool to see this kind of Superman, because it gives you a look at what Superman is. Because even in his darkest moments, he is still a hero. He's still Superman. When called upon by these other heroes, he shows up and he does his part. And he has such a good line to Tyler Hoechlin's Lois Lane. She's asking him, because he's all suited up and he looks awesome in the suit. It's very like Kingdom Come-esque Superman. And she's asking him, why the black in the logo? And he says, because, Lois, even in the darkest times, hope cuts through like a knife. Hope is what lifts us up out of the pit and makes us better people, or something like that. And I just love it so much, because that's Superman. It's one of those things where he is pretty positive no matter what. And obviously, you could find iterations where that's the contrary. But I just love that even in his darkness, in his depression for where he's at in life, he still has that hope that Superman is built on. So I think Ralph gets a bad rap, and he honestly, people give him such a hard time, and I feel bad because a lot of it isn't even the guy's fault. It's just the product of, the movie he was in. It's kind of like Val Kilmer, honestly. They share a lot of similarities to me, where it's like the dude wasn't even that bad of a version of Superman, and he became even better with his appearance in that CW crossover. So it really has you wonder what Val Kilmer's legacy would have looked like if he also got a second, chance appearance. But for now, Ralph is going to be a 5. Next up, at number 4, I hope you guys don't hate me for this. I know Superman fans are very passionate right now, and this is nothing against the actor, but number 4 is going to be David Cornsweet's version of Superman. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I literally debated not even having him on this list or in this video because, number 1, the controversy surrounding his Superman. I made a video on that. You cannot give a single take without being attacked online right now. You can't like him. You can't dislike him. You can't hate him. You can't love him. You can't do anything without, getting a handful of people attacking you. And granted, that's the internet most of the time, but I feel like for this, it's been super amplified, and it's just so ironic given the kind of character we're talking about. But nonetheless, I decided to include him because he does have a movie, and that kind of plays into his placement here. It kind of, sucks for him because he's only had the one appearance, and I'm putting him here right now tentatively because of recency bias. I know I am someone who is susceptible, to recency bias, and if I don't call it, I will always just put the newest thing at number 1. And in my Batman video, you may have noticed I did put the Batman at number 1. But that's because we've had 3 or 4 years to marinate on Pattinson's take on the character. And as I mentioned in that video, every time I rewatch that movie, it goes up and up and up. And his iteration of the character just keeps getting better for me. So there's really no recency bias there. Whereas here, it's like, number 1, we haven't really gotten enough. We've only got the one movie. And this could all change if we go, a while without another appearance, or, once some of the time wears off, I can kind of revisit it. But for now, he's going to go here. I like his hopefulness. I love his, he's very, how do I put it? But it's like, there's a lot of times in the movie where instead of cussing, he'll be like, what the hey, dude? Or, oh gosh, and some people have been clowning on that, but this is a different version of Superman and a different take. If you wanted to see Cavill, which a lot of people do, I understand, but at the same time, you have to understand and kind of respect that this is not Cavill's Superman. This is trying to be something different, and I like that take on it because it just reminds me a lot of the the Superman animated show. And that's not something that I'm pioneering by saying. A lot of people have said that this is basically, this movie is an episode of the animated show just extended and ripped right out of the cartoon, which is awesome. I grew up on those animated shows, JLA, Batman the Animated Series, The Batman, Superman the Animated Series. I loved all of it. So I love that this reminds me of that. And that may play into a role on why he's so high on this list, because having him at 4 is controversial for the people that want him at 1, and it's controversial for the people that don't even want him on the list. But I think he's earned his right here. I think David Cornsweet does a great job of, he kind of does the Christopher Reeve thing better than, definitely better than Cavill did, where you can tell, there's a difference between his Clark and his Superman. And I like that attention to detail. It's kind of hard for Cavill because, nothing against Cornsweet, but Cavill walks around looking like Superman. He's a fucking Chad, so it's kind of harder for him to do the whole Christopher Reeve thing. So I appreciate that Cornsweet did that. He even mentioned that was what he was going for. So I respect that he took the time to do that. Now, some of the cons to why he's 4 and not 1. Like I said, just haven't gotten enough of him, the recency bias thing. And there's just some times where he is a very, very shouty, I guess. He does things. It's weird. He does a lot of things that I know Superman would do, but then he does things that I never pictured Superman doing, like shouting as much as he does. So it's kind of odd, but for now he's going to be here. I hope that it can can raise over time because I want to like current versions of my favorite characters. Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, I want to like them. So I hope that he gets more opportunities to flesh it out. Now, number 3 is going to be Tyler Hoechlin. And this is maybe surprising to have this high, but I did not grow up on this version of Superman, but I always loved the CW, and when I liked the show Supergirl when it was coming out because I was younger and I just pretty much liked anything they put out at that time. I was always so curious as to what Superman would look like on the CW. And not gonna lie, at first I did not like his version because it wasn't what I pictured. But we got the Superman and Lois TV show, and if you guys know anything about that, that is a criminally underrated piece of Superman content. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely go watch it because it is amazing. I love it. And I love his portrayal of the character in that. He gets, I think, like 4 seasons, and over the course of 4 seasons, you get to see his dynamic with Lois, which is awesome. You get to see him interact with his sons, which is like the first time we've seen that since maybe Superman Returns, if you want to count that, but he doesn't really. It's different. But yeah, I mean, his version's awesome. He's got a great mix, honestly, of like, sometimes he feels like Cavill, sometimes he feels like Christopher Reeve. Although that's kind of the reason he is at this part of my list and not number 1 or 2. For me, he definitely does have enough time to flesh out the character, although I wish he got more. But it's just kind of one of those things where he's a weird in-between of my 2 favorites. So for some odd reason, I just feel like putting him here because he doesn't feel as iconic or as important to me as the other 2 versions of the character. I don't really have much to say on him, to be honest. It's kind of one of those things where I don't know, it kind of goes without saying, like, I think he's a very good Superman. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion, so hopefully having him here is not too controversial. Speaking of controversy, number 2, this was so hard because I've gone back and forth on it, and it's one of those things where it comes down to, me personally. This is where it gets heavily into my personal opinion. And for me personally, I'm going to have to put Christopher Reeve at number 2. And I'm putting him here because Cavill, I grew up on him and Cavill and Routh. But Cavill's is just one I connect with more. I like the more human side to Cavill's. Christopher Reeve, don't get me wrong, has a lot of human elements to him, and he has a very iconic performance, and his legacy on the character literally cannot be, forgotten. So I think all of that is very important. And I even made a video on, Christopher Reeve Superman and Michael Keaton's Batman, if you want to check that out. But in that video, I even say Christopher Reeve is my favorite. However, upon rewatching these and revisiting some of these takes on the character, I truly do, believe that he is second for me. Maybe it's the campiness of the movies. Maybe it's the, because for some people the camp can be funny and nice and, what they're looking for. For me, it just doesn't really age as well. And like I said, there's just a lot of the parts of the character that I like that Cavill does better. There's not really much more to say on Christopher Reeve's version that hasn't been said by the entirety of the internet. And honestly, if you're mad at me for putting him in second, I totally understand. But with that being said, number 1 is Henry Cavill. And Henry Cavill's here because I grew up with him, basically. He was my Superman when I was like a teenager, like right going into my teens. He looked like Superman to me. I loved it. I loved his costume. I loved the visual effects. I loved the storyline of the movie. I liked the humanity of his character that they explored, which I know is not a favorite among Superman fans. But I really liked that they made him, he wasn't perfect. He wasn't always hopeful. And it's kind of weird that I'm saying that because it goes very contrary to how much I loved Routh being hopeful. But I'd say not hopeful in the sense that, like, he questioned himself sometimes. He questioned the world he's living in and if he's actually making it a better place. However, he doesn't ever, like, actually lose hope. It's not like this Superman ever becomes, like, a villain or something. Well, unless you count the flash forwards of Darkseid, but that's besides the point. I just love this Superman. He's very strong and powerful. honestly probably the most powerful that we've seen on screen. However, he is also very vulnerable and human. And I just love that about him because it allowed me to connect to him a lot. His relationship with his parents in this movie, in his movies, his relationship with Lois especially. People say they don't really like their chemistry, but I've never understood that because I love the Superman and Lois. Honestly, it's top tier for me. I think Amy Adams does great as Lois Lane, and I think he is an amazing Clark Kent. Like I said, his Clark Kent is not very believable because he walks around like Henry Cavill's Superman. So, like what, 6'5", 240, all lean mass. So he's a giant. But I just love this one because it reminded me a lot of, the JLA Superman for different reasons than Corn Sweat's. And they're very different takes on the character. However, I think both should be, celebrated for just that. They are very different takes. They give Superman fans different things. So, anyone can really be happy with either version. You just kind of pick your poison. I think his interactions with the Justice League, and that might be an unfair comparison, but that's truly just one of the things that also helped tip him over the edge for me, was just getting to see him interact with characters. We got multiple movies out of him. We got to flesh out his character and his Superman a lot. So all that being said, that's why Cavill is going to go here for me. I don't really have too much more to say on it. If you guys agree or disagree, please let me know below. I am interested in hearing people's opinions. However, just, try to keep it civil. I mean, we're all fans here. We can all just, hopefully get along and talk about why certain characters mean different things to us. I think that's part of the fun of having so many versions. Like, anybody can have theirs. So, with that being said, this is my tentative Superman list. As you know, we still have possible future appearances of Corn Sweat. So this can all change, and honestly, most of my lists probably will change over time, especially with more appearances of certain characters. So with that being said, if you stuck around this long and listened to what I had to say, I do appreciate it. Hopefully you can respect my opinions on things. I'm not claiming to be a Superman expert. To be completely honest, Batman is my favorite superhero of all time. Superman is definitely up there in like the top 3 or 4, but he's never really been a favorite. So maybe my understanding of the character is different. Maybe my appreciation for the character is different than what you get out of it. But for now, this is my Superman ranking list. Let me know what yours is in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe. And like I said, I appreciate you guys sticking around and hearing what I had to say. I will see you next time.